So the first career path is the help desk or the IT support path. Usually when you go this route, you'll see common job titles like IT support specialist, help desk technician, help desk analyst, service desk analyst. And usually this is one of the first positions that someone may get when they come into the industry. So usually these positions, I like to say this is when we're getting our foot in the door. So the main job is to get your foot in the door at a good organization, learn that organization, then start to work your way up to whatever position you want to get to. And then when we look at the certifications to help you land one of these positions, of course, we want to mention the A+. I think that's probably the gold standard for a lot of support roles. And then also the CCST support technician from Cisco. That's a pretty new cert. It's only been out less than a year now. And then you have the Microsoft 365 Certified Fundamental Certification. And the reason I mention this is because most environments or most organizations will be utilizing Microsoft products. So almost every organization I can think of, I would say at least 7 out of 10 organizations you can name, a lot of times they're at least using Microsoft Outlook. And then also, one thing to keep in mind is that with some of these positions like a help desk or IT support, sometimes not just knowing the technical, but having those soft skills will help you out too to get in the door and transition to one of these positions. You know, some of those soft skills could be good customer service, being able to communicate with people, being able to communicate via email. So a lot of times email is probably going to be the primary way that you communicate once you get into the industry, because 9 times out of 10, if you're supporting a certain application, something's going on with that application, you're going to need to send out an email to update the users or either update your team or update the whole IT department. So being able to communicate via email is very fundamental, where even some organizations during the interview process, they may have you to respond to some generic emails just to see how well you can communicate via email. So that's something that's real important when it comes to the IT industry, being able to get your thoughts across, being able to update folks on what's going on with a certain application. And then also you may think that, okay, that's something that I would have to do when I get to a higher level, when I get to an administrator or an engineer. That's not the case. A lot of times I remember when I was in the help desk position or when I was in the computer operations position, a lot of times if something went down overnight, you best believe that morning I had to send out their email to let all the folks that's coming on to their shift in the IT department, let them know what's going on, when the issue started, how long the issue been going on, who's looking at the issue. So I had to be pretty good with communicating via email, which for me, that being my first time and my first job in the IT industry, it took a while for me to get good at it. You know, it's one of the things I had to practice, because before that, my job was in a hosiery mill. So the only communication I had to do was clocking in and clocking out. I ain't had to do nothing else. You know, I talked to my buddies, you know, we shoot the junk, you know, talk junk and all that stuff, but I didn't have to send no emails. I ain't have to communicate with nobody. Only thing I had to do was go in there and clock out. So coming from that hosiery mill to now working in a organization where I'm communicating with everyone, that was totally new for me. So with this Microsoft 365 cert, you know, it's great for learning the Microsoft products, but also just think about the soft skills that you may already have. So if you have some of those soft skills, that could help us to get one of these positions also. So at these two positions, you're usually supporting a little bit of everything, which is why I mentioned the certifications that I mentioned. You look at the A+, it's not vendor specific. It gives you a general overall knowledge of a little bit of everything. The CCST is the same way. The only one that was vendor specific was the Microsoft. And that's because, like I said, a lot of organizations will utilize Microsoft products. But overall in these roles, you're pretty much supporting a little bit of everything. So if I recall back to my operations job I had. So basically, if someone called in with an email issue, we had to troubleshoot that email issue. Now, I can only troubleshoot it so far, but I had to have enough knowledge on it to troubleshoot it. If someone called in and it was a server issue, you know, we could troubleshoot that server issue so far before we had to contact whoever is over that server. So at these positions, you get very well rounded, kind of like a generalist. So which is why some of those certifications are kind of, I would like to consider general certifications where they teach you a little bit on everything. You know, you'll touch a little bit on networking, a little bit on hardware. You know, you may touch a little bit on the server side, but you're not going too deep into them. So you're just touching on it. So that's why I said that at this position, like I said, some of those general certifications, A+, CCST, and like I said, the only vendor specific will be one of the Microsoft certifications. So the next career path on my list is good old desktop support. So desktop support will always have a place near and dear to my heart. Desktop support is when I first started to actually like my job. Before desktop support, I was in operations, I was in help desk. Basically, I was on them phones. So when I got the desktop, I started to really enjoy my job. You know, in desktop, I wasn't really tied to a desk all day. I could go out, work on PCs, go to different locations, help users, work on PCs, fix PCs. So with desktop, you know, and to be truthful with desktop, if desktop paid a little bit more, man, I'll probably still be in desktop. So desktop support is definitely one of the career paths that you could choose to go down. So at desktop support, you'll hear common job titles such as desktop support technician, field service technician, tech support analyst, or sometimes it may just be tech support. You know, sometimes you may hear this called break and fix, because basically at the desktop role, you may be repairing PCs, or even if you're not repairing PCs, you may be re-imaging PCs nowadays, especially if you got enough inventory where if a PC breaks, you know, you ain't really got to fix it. You can just go ahead and get that user a new PC. But if you don't get that inventory, yeah, you're going to be doing some breaking and fixing, you know, so you may have to do that here and there anyway. So sometimes you hear this called break and fix, because basically desktop is the ones that's keeping the organization running, keeping the PCs running, because something's going on with a PC or sometimes a printer, things like that, any kind of hardware, usually that's going to fall under desktop support. So that's some of the job titles you may see at this position. And then also that's a little bit of the duties that you may have at this position. And then when looking at the certifications at this position, so of course the A+ is still a must here. Some organizations, that's what they look for a desktop position, because the A+ kind of digs deep into that hardware component of the IT industry. So A+, I say, is still a good one to have here. Also at this position, you can have other certifications that may not be desktop related, and it'll still help you out within your job. So this where maybe a Network Plus could come in. I would say a CCNA, but that's probably overkill. But if someone has that CCNA, and just thinking about myself, when I had that CCNA, it was the thing that got me in the door at that help desk. So it could very well get you in the door into this desktop. Then you make your way to networking. So at this position here, like I said, it's a lot of certifications that can fall under this umbrella, but A+ is going to be the one that a lot of organizations is looking for. I can't think of another hardware certification that is strong as the A+. So this is one of the certifications. If I wanted to go the desktop route, the break fix route, I would probably start studying for my A+ certification here. So A+ is going to lead the pack when it comes to desktop roles, but other certifications would be helpful also. You know, you got Microsoft got a modern desktop administrator associate. So if you're somewhere supporting Windows devices, so just like the career before where we was talking about Office 365, most places running Office 365, most of them going to be utilizing Windows devices also. So that's something to keep in mind. But at the forefront, I would say that A+ is probably still golden here, especially if you want to just go the break and fix route.